While you were lying in the maternity ward, I sold your apartment in downtown New York City for $65,000. My family helped me," my brother said with a grin that twisted the air around him. Behind him stood my parents and sister, their faces glowing with self-satisfaction, like villains who'd finally pulled off a heist. "My name is Clara Weston, I'm 31. And if you think you know how this ends, stay tuned. Do you ever feel a chill even when the room is warm? That's what betrayal feels like. It burns and freezes at the same time." I sat there on the hospital bed, a day after giving birth to my daughter, still weak from the C-section, clutching her tiny hand in mine. The fluorescent lights hummed above us, while my brother waved the property transfer papers like a trophy. "You weren't using it," he shrugged. "You have a baby now. You'll live with mom and dad. We just made things simpler." Simpler. That word cut deeper than the surgical scar on my stomach. Mom crossed her arms. "Family sacrifices for family, Clara. Be grateful your brother handled everything." Grateful? For what? For losing the only thing that was truly mine? I tried to speak, but my voice cracked under the weight of disbelief. My sister laughed. "Oh, come on, don't be dramatic. It's just an apartment. Just an apartment." The apartment I'd saved for years to buy. Working 2 jobs, skipping nights out, cooking instead of ordering in. The place that was supposed to be my daughter's first home. The nurse peeked into the room, sensing tension, but I smiled at her weakly and nodded. Everything inside me wanted to scream, but my daughter stirred, and I swallowed my rage. "Don't worry," I finally said quietly, brushing my baby's cheek. "You've taken your turn. Mine comes next." Mom frowned. "What does that mean?" I smiled. "You'll find out soon enough." They thought I'd collapse, that postpartum exhaustion and grief would swallow my voice. Instead, I sat there motionless, letting them brag. Mom tapped her manicured nails on the railing of my hospital bed. "You were never good with decisions, Clara. It's better this way." My brother, Owen, stuffed his hands in his pockets. "I even got a good deal. You should thank me. $65K cash. You can start fresh." Start fresh? My jaw clenched so tight I could hear my pulse. I'd worked 6 years at an ad agency, sacrificing weekends, saving every bonus. That apartment was the first thing with my name on it. I could still remember the day I signed the closing papers, March light spilling through the broker's office window, the scent of cheap coffee, the faint tremble in my hand when I realized I'd finally made it. And now, standing beside my hospital bed, they were dismantling that dream as if it were a piece of furniture they could split among themselves. "Don't worry, sweetheart," Mom said, reaching for my daughter. "She'll grow up surrounded by family. You'll stay with us until you figure yourself out." Her perfume, sharp and artificial, made me nauseous. I pulled my baby close. "We already have a home," I said quietly. Dad's laugh was dry and cruel. "Not anymore, you don't." Something inside me settled, not with fear, but with precision. They'd underestimated me. They always had. While they gloated, I opened the hospital drawer, slipped out my phone, and hit record. Their voices filled the room, each admission clearer than the next. Owen listing the bank account, Mom confirming the sale, Dad joking about the buyer's sweet offer. When they left, I kissed my daughter's forehead. "Don't worry, baby," I whispered. "Your mom's about to rewrite the ending." The next morning, while my family bragged about helping me, I sat quietly in the maternity ward's window alcove, my daughter sleeping beside me. My body still ached, but my mind was sharp, surgical in its clarity. I replayed the recording on low volume. Every sentence was perfect evidence. Mom confirming the sale, Owen mentioning his cut, Dad laughing about the buyers wiring money under the table. It was a confession wrapped in arrogance. I emailed the audio file to myself, then to a new address I'd created under a different name. Insurance. If they tried to erase my proof, I'd still have a copy. By noon, I called my lawyer, Tara Kim, a sharp, steady woman who'd once helped me buy that apartment. "They sold it without your consent?" she asked, her voice tightening. "Yes," I said. "And I have a recording." There was a pause, then a soft laugh, not from amusement, but disbelief. You might have just given me the easiest fraud case of my career. We met that afternoon at the hospital cafe. I wore my hospital gown beneath a coat, clutching coffee in one hand, documents in the other. Tara's eyes narrowed as she flipped through the forged transfer papers. They even faked your signature. That's felony-level stupidity. I want it all back, I said. You'll get it back, she replied. But we're not going to knock on doors. We'll let them open the door to the police. That night, I fed my daughter and wrote in my journal, the same one my grandmother once gave me with a note. Never stay quiet when truth is on your side. I smiled faintly. Don't worry, Grandma, I whispered. I'm done being quiet. 2 days later, I was discharged. Mom wanted to pick me up, but I told her Ethan, my friend from college, would handle it. They didn't know Ethan was also a licensed investigator who freelanced for Tara's firm. When we pulled up to my parents' house to collect my things, the air outside was syrupy with deceit. My sister opened the door wearing my silk robe, holding a mug that said, "Boss Babe." The irony nearly made me laugh. "Oh, look who's here," she smirked. "Come to apologize?" Ethan stayed silent beside me, scanning the living room with calm precision. I caught the faint glint of his body cam under his jacket. "I came for my belongings," I said. "And for my daughter's things." Mom entered, lips pursed. "You can take your clothes. The rest stays. We redecorated already." Redecorated. The word felt like theft wrapped in interior design. As they argued, Ethan leaned close and whispered, "They just hung themselves again. Financial intent, property conversion, and moral bankruptcy. We've got what we need." When we left, my father followed us to the driveway. "Don't think a lawyer can fix your tantrum, Clara. Family doesn't sue family." I met his eyes. "Then you shouldn't have stolen from family." That night, Tara filed an emergency injunction. Within 24 hours, the court froze the funds from the illegal sale and placed a temporary restraining order on any further property movement. My phone rang at dawn. It was Owen. His voice cracked for the first time. You called the cops?" "Not yet," I said softly. "But they'll call you soon." Silence. Then a shaky breath. "You wouldn't do this to your own brother." "You did it first," I said, and ended the call. By Friday morning, everything was in motion. The state prosecutor had reviewed Tara's filings overnight. The forged deed, the bank transfers, and my recording formed a perfect triangle of evidence. When I woke to feed my daughter, my phone was already buzzing. Tara's message. "They're sending a warrant for questioning this afternoon." I sat on the edge of the bed, watching sunlight crawl across the nursery wall. The bassinet beside me glowed softly, my daughter's breathing steady and small. I kissed her forehead. "You'll never see me beg the way they taught me to," I whispered. By noon, I was at Tara's office downtown. She slid a folder toward me. "They withdrew the $65,000 cash last night. It's traceable. And when the police come, they'll try to blame each other first," she said, leaning back. "People who steal together rarely stay united." Outside the window, the hum of New York City felt different now, no longer suffocating, but alive. At exactly 2:37 p.m., my brother called again. "Clara, we can fix this," he stammered. "Mom said we'll pay you back once we sell Dad's property. Just don't escalate this." "Too late," I said. "You escalated it when you sold my home while I was recovering from surgery." There was a pounding on the line, someone shouting in the background. Then, faintly, my father's voice. "Who's at the door?" Through the phone, I heard the muffled echo of chaos, voices overlapping, the sound of footsteps, and then a single phrase that made me close my eyes. "Police. Open up." I ended the call, heart steady, hands unshaking. Tara exhaled slowly across from me. "They didn't expect you to fight back." "No," I said. "They expected me to cry." The news broke within hours. 3 family members detained in connection with fraudulent property sale, the local station announced. I watched it from my small apartment, holding my daughter while her lullaby mobile turned slowly above us. The footage showed my father arguing with officers at their doorstep, my mother's hand clutching her pearls, my brother pale and sweating as he was escorted out. My sister stood in the background, frozen, clutching her phone like it might save her. Tara called moments later. They're being questioned separately. Your brother's already blaming your father for organizing everything. Exactly as predicted. I smiled faintly. And Mom? She's pretending she didn't know about the forged documents. Unfortunately for her, your recording says otherwise. For the first time in months, I exhaled without pain. That night, the apartment felt quieter than usual. I fed my daughter while scrolling through an old photo, me and my brother at the Brooklyn Bridge, both grinning, long before greed became his language. Do you remember when family meant something? I murmured to the empty air, then shook my head.
No.
They never did. By morning, Tara texted again. Judge approved full restitution request. Sale voided. Property title returning to your name within 72 hours. I stared at the message for a long time before whispering, "We're going home." 3 days later, I stood in front of my apartment building, the same place they'd sold for $65,000. The door creaked as I unlocked it, the scent of the old oak floors and faint lavender from my candles greeting me like a heartbeat I'd missed. My daughter cooed softly in my arms. "You see, sweetheart," I said, stepping inside. "Sometimes justice doesn't need to shout. It just arrives right on time." The court finalized the ruling in my favor that Friday. Every dollar from the fraudulent sale was returned, along with penalties and damages. The prosecutor's summary was short and brutal: coordinated familial fraud against a vulnerable party. They called me the vulnerable party. But standing outside the courthouse with my daughter's stroller, I never felt stronger. Reporters tried to ask questions, cameras flashing. I gave one statement, clear and calm. Family should protect you, not profit from your pain. Then I walked away. 2 weeks later, I received a letter from my mother. The envelope smelled faintly of her perfume, sharp and cloying. "Clara," it read, "we didn't mean for it to go so far. Your brother was desperate. Your father didn't think you'd notice. Let's not destroy our family over money." I read it twice, folded it neatly, and slipped it into the trash. There was no anger left, only distance. That night, Ethan stopped by with takeout. "You know," he said, watching my daughter sleep in her crib, "you could start something good out of this mess." I raised an eyebrow. "Like what?" "Financial awareness programs. Help women protect what's theirs, especially new mothers." I smiled. "You think anyone would listen to me?" He shrugged. "You turned a nightmare into a case study. That's leadership." The next morning, I called Tara. "I want to start a nonprofit," I told her. "Something real. Something that makes sure no one else has to face what I did." She paused, then said, "Now that's the Clara I met at the hospital." I looked down at my sleeping daughter and whispered, "No, that's the one I was always meant to be." 6 months later, I walked into the freshly repainted lobby of my building, the one that once carried their signatures of theft, now fully restored under my name. The brass plaque beside the door read, "Weston Residences, LLC." My name, my story legally sealed. Inside, sunlight spilled through tall windows, glinting off the framed certificate that confirmed the launch of my nonprofit, the Weston Fund for Financial Justice. Tara joined as co-founder, Ethan as advisor. We'd already helped 3 women reclaim stolen assets from family transactions. That evening, I hosted a quiet gathering in the courtyard. No photographers, no speeches, just people whose trust had been broken and rebuilt. As dusk softened the city skyline, Ethan handed me a glass of sparkling cider. "You realize you've turned betrayal into a blueprint," he said. I smiled. I just stopped letting shame speak louder than truth. My phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. "We're sorry. We lost everything. Can we at least see the baby?" I stared at the words, the familiar tug in my chest, old loyalty trying to resurrect itself. Then I typed back, "She's safe. And she will never learn love the way you taught it." Block. Silence. Freedom. Later that night, my daughter toddled across the living room floor, her laughter echoing off reclaimed walls. I lifted her into my arms and whispered, "This is ours. No one can sign it away." Out on the balcony, the city hummed like a living heartbeat. For the first time, I didn't need justice to feel whole, because wholeness was already here, breathing in the small, steady rhythm of a child who would never know betrayal. Some stories end with punishment. Mine ended with peace.
Thôi để thằng ta ơi.
Anh có nói chứ.
Tôi ghét đi.
Mua 3 con rồi thả.
Ghét vậy, cái này được.
Tay nhức.